So Duke University, into the Peace Corps. So were you dating? You must have met some interesting people. Were you dating anybody interesting during this time? Or were you just a single girl focused? Hey, you know, chit-chat's about getting down and dirty. Wait a minute. We got to get the good stuff, too.
Oh, I was dating a lot of people, but, you know, I think that it was the timing that was really right. In fact, I met my husband 14 years before we ever got back together. He got engaged to 2 people. He never got married. And we got back, and he said, and I met him on the street corner one night. His name is Joe Oppenheimer, and we've been married for 30 years. But he said, I said, oh, why don't you come with me? I'm going to take you to a party. And I didn't tell him 300 other people, which is basically would be there. And I think that's been the support that he's been for me. But you know your limits as well. So
how'd you meet your husband?
Basically is, oh, I met through when we were working with someone that had sharing a ride at the Peace Corps. He was a lawyer in town, and so we met then. But we come from very identical backgrounds, and it's really nice to be very supportive. But by the time we got married, I think we both understood that I needed freedom, right? So you know your limits, but you also know your limits when you have to bounce back home.
I think, honey, being married to you, you'd know a lot right away. You know, it'd be like trying to catch you once, you'd give up. You were so busy.
I just met Keisha here, and she said, I do all the kinds of things like birthdays and events and help. We all need people like that in our lives, so I'm hiring her. But the fact is that...
You met Keisha today and you're hiring her?
Yeah, but I think I did right now. See? You got that? I just made a pronouncement, all right? Wow. But the fact is that it's so important that we can make sure we've got the personal instilled, right? And that we take time for love and support.
That's excellent. Well, let's go back now and talk about when you left the Peace Corps and what you did next.
Well, I spent 5 years working for the poverty program, and then I went into HHS and was head of health communications, and then I established a PR firm, public policy and public affairs. And that was only because in one of the big international PR firms, I was dating the president, and he said that was his dream. And so he said, let's go do our own firm. And he chickened out, and there I was. So I had to build it.
So you built his dream.
I did.
And how did you like building his dream? What did you think of it, what you were doing?
Well, it was the entrepreneurship that is instilled in me and instilled in so many other people, right? So it was the right thing to do.
Is huge to you. Affecting poverty issues to you. Entrepreneurship, addressing entrepreneurship and opportunities is huge to you.
And you know, entrepreneurship, because 7 out of every 10 jobs in America are entrepreneurs. So when we talk about really rebuilding this economy, and it's not big business necessarily, even though big business is very important. There are clients, there are support. But the fact is, it is a nation of entrepreneurs.
That's so true. And the majority of new businesses are started up by women. Is that not true?
It is. 2 to 1 in terms of women over men, and minority women are 3 to 1.
I didn't know that statistic. That's amazing. So if you're out there, what great opportunities we create, whether it's small business, grows to medium-sized business, or whatever happens. It's so empowering. I think a lot of women why do you think women start their own businesses? What drives that?
There are many reasons, and I think you all will share that with me. But I think one with women is give you flexibility. So it's because most small businesses are small, and many work out of their homes and choose that for family reasons, and that's admirable. I think the other is, so that's clearly the flexibility. I think the second reason is that just totally is women feel that there aren't the right jobs in major corporations for them, or they don't have the access into those jobs, all right? 3 is really the innovative spirit of women.
I agree. I agree. So let's talk a little bit about the businesses that you start. Have you sold them? What do you do with each of the businesses that you begin? Tell us a little bit about that background in your story.
Well, and I think that's even funny. But I think when you go through buying, selling businesses, it basically, you learn In fact, when I really sold my business, and one of my best friends, who's 80 years old.
Now, which business was this
Floyd,
you sold?
this was the public affairs group, which had the Diversity Best Practice Businesswomen's Network and Best Practices in Corporate Communications, which I sold to iVillage and NBC. But I remember my friend Flory called me every night, and she said, cash, all cash, do not take stock, right? And my husband was telling me the same thing, and he said to me, why did you listen to Flory every night, right? And not, well, you know, I think that is the sisterhood of people that you really respect, and Flory had sold 2 businesses, so I truly respected that in terms of just advice and counsel. But I think everything that you learn is, and I've made many mistakes, we all do, but the fact is you get good legal counsel, you get basically great accounting help, and you basically, I brought my lawyers and accountants together with me every month and presented to them where I was going, and it's basically the value on that relationship. So after I really sold, the first people that I took out for a major Friday night in a limousine, Christina, was my lawyer and accountant and their spouses.
You know, I think that is some of the best advice we hear, and this is another one of those sterling moments where we stop and look back. Your attorney, your legal team, and your accounting team can be key to your business, and I love the idea that you presented to them. I am very close. In fact, I have my accounting firm here, Watkins Megan, and we met just recently with our attorney, but I like the idea of maybe that becoming a regular part of your business plan. How many people in the room just work kind of regularly with their attorney? And so, you know, not that many, but a number of people here meet with their attorney and accounting team. I think that that is really good advice when you're building your business. Let's talk about what made your company so unique and made it appealing to iVillage.
You have to keep changing, right? Everybody agree you have to change. Like, I was one of the first women lobbyists in this town until everybody got into lobbying, right? So you have to, so I basically was the support for the Panama Canal Treaty, labor law reform, many of the big public policy issues where we sought support from all the American people, and you learn how to build a grassroots network. But then everybody got into the game, so you have to, what's the next step, and the next step that make you unique? So as we truly built and morphed into truly supporting gender and diversity, it became really exciting to help change the face of corporate America, the associations, and now doing executive recruiting, you have to walk the walk. And it's very interesting because we're beginning to work with the American Institute of Architects, and if you look at their tagline on their emails, and if you look at the carpet in the lobby, and if you look at their website, it's walk the walk, not talk the talk, because I think so much, so that really resonates with me, with you, is basically it's more important that you take the action and the execution than the talk.
I think that's great advice. Let's talk a little bit about your lobbying experience. Share some of the stories that happened when you were lobbying. I know, and I'm just trying to imagine you up on the Capitol Hill taking over Congress, but what were some of the initiatives or issues you really thought were compelling, and who were some of the people you worked with?
Well, I think that what is really interesting, I remember on the labor law reform, the lawyers were all talking legal language, right? And my friend Betty Southard Murphy, who was head of the Wage and Hour Administration, called me and she said, Edie, 70% of jobs impacted our small business. So we turned the entire campaign around to the impact of small business. And I remember one day getting a call from Hugh Sidey at Time Magazine, and he said, Edie, what do you have to do with this campaign? And I said, well, Hugh, I hope that we're truly running it. He said, well, I just want to tell you about my brother who has a small printing plant in Iowa and the impact that this legislation has on him because of his small business. So we knew we were right in running that kind of campaign. And I remember, because this country doesn't learn, so 20 years ago, Toyota hired me, and Toyota, when it was the first energy crisis that we had with gas lines, a lot of people aren't old enough to remember, but the fact is that someone said to me, I wonder if we could prove for the lawyers before the International Trade Commission that the layoffs are all in big car plants and not in small car plants. So we went over to the Bureau of Labor Statistics and poured through all the data, and indeed, we proved that it was the fault of the American auto companies not to build small, gas-efficient cars, and that was 20 years ago. So if you look at today and you think about it, but we won the case before the International Trade Commission, just proving that with data, that the American car companies did not have the foresight for the energy. But look at what happened 20 years later.
Sounds like do your homework is another big lesson. Do your homework. If you're fighting, battling an issue, do your homework. Be prepared. Have the numbers behind you. That's a really great, compelling story. So I hear diversity. I hear
But you know,
policy.
in that experience, because I don't do a lot on Capitol Hill, but I think with that, I got a passion for supporting women in elective office, right? And that becomes extremely important, and we all can't do everything. So I really picked a couple of organizations to support, but I really thought the one thing that I could do, again, is zero in on a few things, was really impact women senators. So if I did anything for the last decade or so, was really to put the support on electing women senators.
Who do you think are some of the most important voices right now on the Hill in terms of women senators?
Well, I think they all are. I think it's unique. They've all got amazing talents. But, so, what's the bar? I mean, it's going to depend what happens with Hillary's seat, but, you know, so we still, assuming that can go to a woman, we will still only have 17% in the Senate and about the same thing in the House. So it's the same bar we were 2 years ago. 2 years before that, we were at 16%. So, you know, if we really go of where we want to impact, because we've got to measure everything we do. Corporate America is not changing very dramatically. Women on corporate boards are not changing drastically. So we've got to move those numbers up, and we do it through a major sisterhood of advocating for each other.
So it sounds like that's a little bit of a call to action. We need to advocate for each other. The power of our voice together is so much stronger than that individually.
Totally.
I mean, a single voice is strong, but it's a much more powerful voice if we all come together. So you want to really have women join in their voices to tell that we need more representation on the Hill, more representation in both Congress and in the Senate.
And for women that want to start, whether it's state legislatures, whether it's whatever it is, local school boards, it's getting the experience to truly get engaged and get on nonprofit boards, because that is the very rich experience. Join the organizations and truly get the experience.
One of the biggest discrepancies you see is on paid boards. I think a lot of women serve on the nonprofit boards. I think that's most commonly where you find them. But one of the biggest challenges is for women to getting an invitation to be heard, recognized for her skills, her experience, her expertise, to be invited. Have you found that to be true?
It is, but what's understandable is you've got to have had more business operations experience, and you've got to truly run a bottom line. So it's not that you've got to run a major operation. It's just, I'm lucky to be a founding member of the Committee of 200, but now you have to have either run $300 million in a major corporation or at least $15 million in your own business. You've got to have the operational skills to have really run a bottom line and understand the financial responsibilities.